Howdy.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Perfect.
I had I had the wrong one selected. So
Nice. Nice.
anyway, how are you? It's been how many years?
Ah, jeez. I don't think I've seen you now since... Was that NEC 1 year?
The one event I came to that I wasn't there too long, but I remember going out and getting like fast food for both of us.
Yes.
I don't know if that was NEC, but I remember seeing
Oh,
MF Slayer, Tekken Master,
oh,
and
that was NEC 17, so that was 2 years ago.
okay.
Yeah, and I remember an ECT before that when we were still at the Hyatt. We went out to the parking garage and had a little sit down or a stand up.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, now you've been going to the tournaments on the regular still, or have you been kind of taking a break from that?
I still am doing my normal routine. It's just that things have been changing. We knew this was going to happen with the esports involvement. So my streaming presence has been reduced somewhat, but
Okay.
I'm still doing like system monitor type things for Big E, and I get little con invites all the time. I just can't take them all because it's hard to add to what already exists.
Right.
It's kind of actually good that I'm like not doing as many of the FGC events, and also because like there's been a real lull in the NRS scene lately. Now with the MK11 though, we got to see what's gonna happen with that because it's looking pretty interesting with the money and everything that's gonna be involved. So.
Yeah, I could only imagine with that, 'cause it just seems like every year the esports aspect of it, like before, I wouldn't say it was coming on as kind of like a joke as far as like this esports thing coming up with like fighting games, and I mean back years ago when these things were on websites and it was looked at, in my perception from everyone else, as almost like a joke, but now it's like every year it's
So what you mean is like people in the scene like not believing that it's going to catch on, or
between that and just people in general. Remember when it was actually first called esports? You know what I mean? Like first being called esports for like especially fighting games, because you figure the bigger games, the massive games like the League of Legends, those types of games.
Yeah, totally different.
Right.
So what happened was, going back probably, I mean, it's 15 years now, I would say, that esports really has existed. It's just that nobody, at least in the FGC, was pretty much aware of it. The games that they selected had nothing to do with popularity. It was contracts with developers, really. That was it. Like DOA was a game when like Tom Brady he like left the FGC on some level, I guess you could say, for it, and a lot of us, I guess, didn't really understand what was going on exactly, because these were like, I don't remember there being a whole lot of promotion for it. So like there were these events that had nothing to do with grassroots, but it was because it was like an MLG type company just running a fighting game. Like that's what they did with like Tekken and DOA, and I'm pretty sure Namco, because they've always had very good marketing and connections with people who were running stuff that's going to give visibility. So it took probably until, what was it, MK9? I mean, they had some stuff going on before that was getting a little bit of attention, but MK9 was really what kind of cruxed it. It was pretty. It was a pretty big step because nobody expected Mortal Kombat to be the game to be like to bridge the gap between esports and the FGC. That's how I saw it, at least. So.
No, yeah, I mean, plus MK9 actually put things back to how they should have been on like a 2D plane, and because you figure before MK9 that was what we had MKDC, and
yeah, I know.
That makes me immediately think of, was it NEC 11 that we had that well, to us it was big, but it was an 11-man tournament for UMK3. Was that NEC 11?
It was so when you first came to the scene, was ECT2. It was that same year, so that was 2010. So NEC that year, we had a nice UMK3 tournament. We had the MKDC tournament as well, because all those guys came out, because MK9 was like, basically the beta was like a month away or something, so
right.
Everybody showed up. But yeah, we had like 32 players for UMK3 at that one, and we had a decent turnout for MKDC. I just remember a couple years beforehand, it was me and Tom Brady. We were at the what was it, the what place was that? They must have, when did MKDC come out? 2008?
That sounds right.
So if it, we'll just say it was NEC 9, which would have been 2008, because you always got to add one, because it started in 2000. So Brady was asking me to do MKDC, and I told him, well, look, I'm like, I bring my stuff, and again, remember, this was a tiny MK scene at the time. Like, there was nobody. I mean, I know the 3D stuff had a lot going on, but that was because it was online. Like, there was a lot. It's very easy to have big scene where nobody has to leave. I'm not going to get into that too much, but the point is, you have this potential scene of, we'll say, hundreds of serious players, and nobody's showing up. And then Brady's asking me, Shock, we gotta do MKDC. It's the new game. It's everybody's. This is finally the one, Shock. Everything else is trash, Shock. We gotta do it. So I was like, okay, you gotta bring the games. You gotta bring the system. You gotta bring something to play it on. I do my end, but I can't. I don't have all this stuff. This is over 10 years ago now. Not a whole lot has gone on at the time to really build, and we were trying. So we're getting like 16-player UMK3 tournaments at the time, which was like unheard of. You know, that was a serious achievement. And just like, I'll say Deception and Armageddon, because Deadly Alliance, there were tournaments for that. There was no net play for that, but there were a few tournaments for them, and Brady won all of them. But they fell off immediately. The first time I played the game was in a tournament, and that was literally like probably not even 2 weeks or so after the game came out. But the whole point here is there was nobody making the 3D games happen in terms of like getting the scene out to play. So when we had the UMK3 tournament and everything finished, Brady comes up to me and he has like two guys with him. And he's just like, hey, he's like, can we borrow your setup? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, we're all done. Go ahead. So like, that was it. That was the only existence that I ever saw MKDC until NEC 11, when everybody showed up, all like the known players. And it was really nice to see, because it was like, okay, cool. Like, this looks like we're gonna get a turnout for MK9. Because remember, we didn't really know. We had no idea. Nobody really understands that. Is that MK9 was such an uncertainty. Like, it looked like and seemed like, yeah, we really have something. We didn't realize what we were going to have for something for our community, and it was really, really special. So,
so what you're saying was MK9 was potentially that game that was around the curve. You just didn't know what it was going to be, but we were hoping that it was going to be kind of like the future, and thankfully, it was. The best that it could have been. It's interesting to hear you talk about Deadly Alliance and like the scene, because that stuff. I forget what I was even, because so I love how we're kind of backtracking at games, because
we're gonna jump all over the place, because there's really, it's funny because like there's nothing to talk about, but there's a lot to talk about at the same time, because there's like this huge gap. Where like at least for the FGC, like the MK community didn't really know like what the FGC was, I felt. And before like Ultimate MK was around, like before we did that site, we had another site, and it was mostly online based. So we kind of got away from that, focused on MK. We're like, we can really do this. Like, we can really make people see that there's like a place to come play, because all you do is see people talk about how they were the best. That's it. That's like all you would ever see. Oh yeah, I was the best in MK2. I was the best in MK3. I was the best in MK4. We were like, okay, we need a place where people can show it, and we got a little bit of a taste of it, I'll say. And then right before MK9 came out, we really started seeing like serious tournaments. So
Okay, I mean, of course, you go back quite earlier than I do, because the first event that I was at, I think you had it. I think it was like ECT2 that I was at. It was like my first event.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure was Tim there too?
Yeah, Tim was there.
Phil was there.
Yeah, Phil was there. Simon. We had like I think it was like 14, maybe like 14 players for it, and that was just kind of like a circumstantial thing, because we were starting to see better numbers at that point. But 2010 was like the year of MK. Like that was like the year that everything kind of came together, and then especially after the summer, because they announced MK9 probably right around the summer, I guess it was. And I remember talking about it, or at least John Gallagher mentioned it on the Road to Evo stream during the set I had with L.I. Joe, the infamous like most watched MK YouTube video, or 2D MK YouTube video.
Is that the one where I don't know if you remember, but pretty sure that's the one that I actually used as a banner for Test Stream Red at one point? Is that the one where like he's standing up and like kind of like
on the chair?
Yeah.
Which one was that?
Shit, I'll have to find it, because I don't think I was there, but it was.
Does he have hair in it?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, so that's probably that was ECT 2014. We did the exhibition.
Oh, that's what it was.
That was different. That was like, it's funny because somebody was talking to me about that recently, and they were just like, it was like really cool that like you guys kind of like stopped everything at a tournament to just like play UMK3. I was like, a couple weeks before that, John Gallagher asked me, he goes like, what do you think about doing an exhibition before? There was another one too. There was like a Marvel exhibition or something like right after us. He's like, what do you think about doing like a first to 5, first to 10 or something like that with Joe, just for like a little hype set, between like pools and money matches or whatever. And I was like, absolutely. And really what that equates to is like, normally Joe and I would just like play UMK3 for a few sets in the back corner of a tournament and nobody's watching, maybe a couple people will walk by and it's just us as friends having fun. And we literally turned that scenario into like, here's the spotlight at a tournament, and just watch these two guys just play a game that they love, and that was really, like a nod to the like the change of the guard, basically, because I think Injustice was probably a year and a half, almost a year, probably a year old by then. So MK was kind of like faded out a little bit, and we were just like, here's like little, here's a little taste, of what we used to do, but that's probably the one that you're talking about. There's this really nice picture of Joe, and he's just kind of like looking at the crowd and standing up. I think that's the one that you're talking about.
Yeah, actually, I think that it sounds right. We actually used that as the banner for the site years ago. But yeah, like I was saying, now what? Because I love how deep we're kind of going with this, but now what year was it that you started actually doing actually offline tournaments?
The first one I attended, or like when I like was sort of like the East Coast MK guy.
Well, I mean, where did it start? I mean, I know Ryan Hutnick. I think it was a big influence to you on that, if I remember correctly, or was he just?
Yes, and very interestingly enough, today is the 13th anniversary of his passing.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, that's just a little tidbit there. I saw one of his exes was posting about him, and we all miss him, but he's one of those people that when you hear somebody say like, wow, that person really like touched a lot of people's hearts. Like right. Had that thing about him. He had that aura about him, very mysterious, and he's the reason why we're even talking right now, because I might have found out that there was a scene, but the thing that pushed me to find what the scene was the fact that he was better than I was at the old games, and he was better at all fighting games in general, and he actually leveled me up. I was still like at a point, because I was only like 19 when I met him, so I was still at a point where like I could learn new stuff. Like I'm so like old and like set in my ways. Like I don't get better at fighting games. But back then, he leveled me up, and he introduced me to the scene. Like, he already knew what he was already on like all the big sites back then. I mean, you're talking, this was 2000, so it's almost 20 years ago. He was on Shoryuken.com and Tekken Zaibatsu and like a bunch of other like really, really grassroots type fighting game sites. And like frame data started coming out like around like Soul Calibur 2. That were, I should say, like not coming out, but like people really started talking about it. Right. So like the coalescence, we'll say, of everything needed to create a competitive scene, advertise it on the internet. There wasn't any YouTube, there wasn't any social media, so that was exactly.
That was really limited. At least.
Yeah. So he was the defining like milestone. They said, I want to go to tournaments and play people. So that was 2001. So I actually knew him for about a year and a half before we even went to a tournament. Now, to make another connection, he used to go to like malls and like places that had like an arcade where they would run events, and he would play in tournaments. I mean, in the 90s, along with Tom Brady. They both lived in the same area. They both went to the same malls. They knew each other. So the first tournament that I went to was with Ryan. It was NEC 2. That last year was NEC 19. So do the math. Tom Brady, oh my God, he had like the blonde Eminem hairstyle going like that. It was, and he was. If you know Tom Brady now, you know his personality. I know he kind of like he's in the shadows a lot lately, but if you know him at all and you know how he is, he was 10 times worse back then. Because remember, we were kids. You know, he was like just out of college. I think he's a couple years older.
Yeah, I gotta say, you know, EC2. Hold that thought, by the way. I didn't mean to cut you off, but EC2. When I saw him walking around, I knew who he was and whatnot. He really had kind of like a snobby presence to himself. Like seriously,
I could tell you why. I mean, it's funny. I'll get back to what I was saying in a second. But basically, Tom Brady and he's seen the development of the competitive MK scene from a different perspective, in that he wanted it to die. He was so bitter and resentful towards all the guys that he knew from like the 90s, right, and maybe early 2000s. He didn't see the MK scene as being anything that was going to become what say Marvel was at the time, because that was your standard. Marvel 2 was the big game, then CBS 2. So then when MKDA came out, it was like, this is a new MK game and I'm going to be like the best at it. And he was, but nobody knew about it. So he was probably super bitter about all that. And then he saw nothing happen for years. He told me once, he's like shocked. He's like, I would see every tournament you bring in this equipment for like a handful of people, and then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why is this guy breaking his back for these games? Aren't worth it. They don't deserve it, right? So, you know, I always call us like the Professor X and the Magneto of the scene, because like, you know, we both wanted to see something good, and we both had our ways about doing things. Right. He then said, then all of a sudden he's like, I see there's like 16 people, 24 people, 32 people. He's like, holy shit, like this is finally starting to pay off. And everything kind of came together, perfect timing for MK9, where it's like there was enough of a presence in MK where it's not like you have like some side tournaments for years, and it's like the same game gets updated and then it gets updated and it gets updated and it never really catches on. Like all of a sudden we have a brand new game, and that's really what I think was the important factor, is multiple layers of the community finally coming together, because it was a new game, but it kind of didn't really play like the old games, but it kind of played as if it was never 3D, even though it still technically in some ways is. But anyway, so getting back to what was it, NEC 2? NEC. Yeah. That's when I met Bill, Tom Brady. And
that's when you met him for the first time?
That's when I met him for the first time. And Ryan, the Prophet, is playing like Julian Robinson, who's another long time. I mean, he's been
You're
around.
saying NEC2. I was taking it as ECT2. So this
No,
is way
NEC2.
before,
I'll go back to EC. That's we're jumping around a little bit because
that's fine.
There's so much history. So, and I can talk a lot, as you know.
I love it. Go ahead.
So Ryan is playing. I'm gonna say it was Julian Robinson. There was like a handful of people. There was like 12 people for this tournament. We heard about.
Wasn't that another name?
What was that?
Really? Julian? Wasn't he like
Julian was like a top 5 player in like every single game between like 2000 and 2005.
That's another name that I remember being.
He's a Philly guy.
Okay.
Him and Jerron were good buddies. Jerron Hero, you know Jerron. And they would always play in like MK2, UMK3. Like they just love playing games, and that's like something that I don't see as much anymore because the scene is so big, and you have so many people who are only coming for one game. They're not really there to make friends, which is fine. They just want to come and play.
Hell yeah,
Guys, you had these guys who love to play everything, and they were like my first real friends in the scene because, again, classic, Mortal Kombat was a thing. We're, pushing our 40s now. So I'm talking with Tom Brady, and he doesn't know that I'm friends with Ryan, and he starts talking trash about Ryan right there, and he's telling me, he's like, oh, man, he's like, I remember this guy from Menlo Park. Menlo Park is a location in New Jersey, Menlo Park Mall, and that's where they used to play MK3 in like 1995. So they knew each other going back then, playing in tournaments when they were, I don't know, 15, 16 years old or whatever. Okay. So that's how far back they go. When like there was no FGC, but there were these elements of fighting game tournaments all over the place, everywhere. Like all little arcades all across the country that still existed would run their own little weekly events, just like we still have now.
Yeah, because I'm sure, with online scene, that really didn't really come to fruition until, years later, of course. So that's that sounds right.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And then it goes, also you have like the fledgling internet at the time,
right,
which,
yeah.
Like 1993, like there would be, you can still dig them up. There's message board wars about factions of players from different like areas going and playing each other. You can still find all that stuff, and I think you definitely find like summoning on there and like probably James MK, but all that stuff goes back so far, and it's funny because I never got to be a part of that because I was a little bit younger. So MK3 came out, and that was the first fighting game that I was waiting for. Like I anticipated the drop for MK3, and I was looking at arcades for it because I played MK2 a lot and I liked it, but I was more of a Street Fighter player. So when I heard that like MK3 was going to have combos and it was going to be aggressive, not necessarily like I don't have necessarily aggressive style, but to me that sounded like it was going to be faster.
Sure,
like MK2 was just at that point was just too slow for me because when you play, say, like Street Fighter 2, you had the turbo settings, and the turbo settings made the gameplay like, oh my god! Like I remember playing some of my friends who were not like competitive, but they would hate it because they'd be like, oh, it's too fast. I can't play anymore. Only play 1 star,
Yeah, MK2 to MK3. If you asked me to pick which one, well, for me, really, since I'm more of a spectator one to watch. Matches of it's definitely going to be UMK3 just because, like you said, it's basically 2 different games to me. And but yeah, MK3, UMK3, just such an iconic game.
And I was only like 13 or 14, like right on the cusp of 14, I think, when MK3 came out. So obviously I'm like a freshman in high school, so I'm not going around anywhere. Can't drive yet, and I'm basically limited to where I can go by like my family. So when my family would go to like Atlantic City, the boardwalk, or like anytime we would go to like the movies, like I'd be like sitting there playing a game and they'd be like, come on, we got to go, the movie's starting, like for my friends and stuff, and we get dropped off, and I'd be like, I remember when the movie came out, and I guess that was 95. That sound right?
That does sound right, yes.
Yeah, and I believe it was me and Dreamer NJ. That's another name that goes back to the beginnings of the scene. That's a personal friend of mine. And we were like playing MK3, and everybody's like, come on, like let's go, like the movie's starting. And we were like, I really just want to play. Like, I was just like, all right, fine. You know, I was like, all right, I'll go. But like, I just wanted to play because you didn't get that as much. Like, you'd have to go, like, and hope sometimes, depending on where you were, that there was going to be people there. Like, if you just were at the mall, like, on a random weekend, that might not have been the meetup time. Like, there was always a cruise at malls where they had, like, meetup days and meetup times. But
yeah, I mean, we're talking about a whole different world. I mean, just trying to take that. I mean, because you don't have, like, hey, sending someone a text, like, hey, meet me here at this time. It's just, like, thinking about how different it was. You're strictly going on chance, like, all right, who's going to be there? So, yeah, I totally understand, you know, you're...
And one machine for, you know, 10 people, you know, it's totally different. And, like, the amount of, like, real-time, like, studying, you know, you don't have, like, you know, practice mode. You know, that's another thing, like, the older guys... we all say is like, when you learn these games, by the time they came out on the console, the next one was coming out in the arcade. So, like, you'd have people who only played arcade and people who maybe did both, and then people who only played console. So, like, you had these, like, sort of, like, mix and match of, like, who prefers, like, what, you know, and then, of course, like, you know, back in the day when we played tournaments, it was just on cabinet, so everybody played on stick, you know, so that was... another factor.
I hate stick.
But anyway,
I can't do it. I commend you for that, but yeah, I cannot do that.
But so anyway, we were talking about what ECT2, not NEC2, ECT2, when you showed up, because that was like, to me, that was like the pivotal moment for us to really lock people in, and then we did see it for the rest of the year because we had seasons meetings, which was fantastic. That was that Ohio tournament where we had, I think it was like 36 players or something like that. I mean, 36 all paid, you know, because there were some tournaments we ran for free where we got like 20 players or whatever.
Right.
We had 36. It was on cabinet. I had them modify the cabinet so that we could use PlayStation controllers and everything. We really wanted to make sure that it was going to be like the best experience, and the entire top 8 for that tournament was there because I was there. That's like my claim to fame for that event, because I brought like 3 people with me who were all in the top 8.
Conqueror was on that one, right?
We flew him out there. We sponsored him for the event. That was a little like under the radar sponsor, and then so then. Because summoning went, his friend Al from like North Carolina or something, like he never would have went to this event if Nip wasn't there. That was summoning. That was just, you know, he was there. Oh, cool, you're going to a tournament? Oh, I'll come. Right. So he went out there because I brought summoning out there. And then I think it was like I think it was the night before. I remember it was kind of like down to the wire. Like if you're gonna come, you gotta leave now, sort of thing. Because Mo and Thrower came out from Chicago.
Oh, yes.
They drove to
Mo 30W, right?
Mo 30W and Thrower, and Mo messaged me. He's like, "Yo, were you at that Ohio tournament?" Because if you're not there, I'm not gonna go. So I was like, "Well, if you're going, are you gonna bring Thrower?" He's like, "Absolutely." He's like, so I was like, "Well,
I remember that
here.
stream.
Yeah, I'm here right now. We're setting the machines up," and then he wound up getting a speeding ticket on the way there. But he won a little bit of money in the tournaments, because we did like a random select tournament the night before on like the Friday, and then we did the real tournament Saturday, or something like that. If somehow maybe we might have did the random select tournament after pools or something like that. But the entire top 8 consisted of like non-Ohio players. Like they had like a scene developing there, which was really cool. Like I was really happy to know like that there wasn't just like this is seasons meetings and they're getting all these random walk-ups. They actually had like a dozen guys out there who played pretty regularly. So when you put us together with their guys and then the randoms, they had like some really random, like Flo I think played in it, Fubar Duck, like a few guys just like yeah, cool, like big UMK3 tournament, I'll jump in. And it was really nice. It was really fun, and I got to do commentary on it. It was streamed, just like ECT2, by the way, being like the first real. I don't think there was any streams for any Mortal Kombat games before that, not that I can think of. And that was in the midst of, I guess it was Super Street Fighter 4. Might have been the incarnation that was out at the time. It was definitely by Road to Evo later on in the year, because there was a point where John Gallagher said that they had more viewers at that point when we were playing in the finals for UMK3 than they had during pools for Street Fighter 4, which to me it's always good when the stream numbers go up when we play, when we interject the random ass 20-year-old game into the middle of an event, you know. But yeah, there's obviously so much more involved there, but that's really what led up to me and you kind of really like starting to talk about things.
Yeah, that's quite the path you had. Like, you had more of a offline arcade path, and mine was more of a just strictly. I don't even remember how I got into Mortal Kombat to begin with. It was just one of those things where you just.
How old are you?
How old am I now?
Yeah,
35 right now.
Oh, you're 35. Okay, so you're a couple years younger than me.
Yes.
You're still in the age range though, where like arcades are very, very memorable. At least like when arcades were successful at the time.
Right.
Because by the late 90s, it was like gone. I would even say the mid 90s was really when it started falling, and I attribute that to PlayStation, because PlayStation was pretty damn good. Like, it was, you had that feel of the arcade for games, whereas like you'd be waiting for the next arcade version of a game to come out because you wanted to be blown away by how good it was. There was just a crispness to how having your exclusive hardware for every game that comes out, you don't have to like program like lowest common denominator for, you know, like some like oddball system that doesn't support third parties that well. You had your own hardware for every single game, and it was just going to be like, wow. Like, I remember when Tekken games and Soul Calibur games came out, it was just like, this doesn't even look like a video game anymore. Like, it was just totally different. And that's kind of how it felt when MK4 came out. So MK4 was just looked so different that it kind of made you feel like, things are like going like a different direction now. And then there was no more MK arcade games, and then that's when you knew, like, this is something's different. You know, you can only play at home, so you're not going to run into random people anymore when you're playing it. So you had MK Deadly Alliance that had no net play and no arcade, and that was bad. Right. And that was bad. Like, if they started with net play somehow, did anything have net play at the time? It's in 2002, I think.
Well,
Dreamcast
5 around. Oh, you're talking about in general.
Yeah,
I was going to say 05 was
PlayStation 2 had it, right? Yeah, broadband adapter. That's right.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was a big thing at the time though. Not until Deception.
Yeah, but yeah, now I think about my very first encounter with Mortal Kombat. Actually, it wasn't actually Super NES. I thought it was, but I said that in an earlier podcast. But it was actually the Game Boy, and it was the black and white, just regular Mortal Kombat, and of course just two buttons, and you know, you're just fooling around on it. But yeah. I remember, of course,
that's a nightmare.
Yes, like I remember.
But if it's all you had, it was super special, and it really could like create your like fundamental connection to a game. It's like, that's what you remember. You're like, you know, going to bed at night and just like cozying up to the Game Boy, and you got that like tinny sound and just unsightly graphics, but that's what you have, and that's how you know Mortal Kombat. And that's
only ever did Scorpion's Fatality once, and that was from mashing buttons. I was wanting to do that. It pissed me off that I couldn't do it. But anyway, yeah, years later, through life and everything else, Mortal Kombat Deception was really the one that I fell back into, because, of course, with NetPlay and finally having a PlayStation, and then with my journey on that was just then going on to online, getting through these sites, meeting these people, and playing. Yeah,
that's like questions that I have for you, because I don't really know anybody from the scene, from all the from the message boards for like any of the PlayStation games. And I just call them the PlayStation games because I know they're on like Xbox stuff.
Right.
But like that series of like 4 games for PS2, I don't really know anybody who didn't eventually show up for MK9. So I only saw like people would like tell me like some people would like saying things on message boards and like they're talking bad about 2D MK and how like this is the way of the future, and then I would go and I would look at the stuff. So all I ever had was negativity. That's all I ever got was negativity. So
It was two different worlds. It was like our side of the fence is better than yours. Yeah. It was even
like when schools, you know, it's like
yeah. I mean, it was back when. Okay, so again, I said before, I don't even remember what the internet looked like back in 2005, but I remember stumbling upon MKO, and it was great because you had M2 Dave, you had Rio. I mean, a plethora of people. You know, Gertrap was on there. All these guys in different clans. So it was like an online competitive scene, and I just stumbled upon the site, got hooked into it, and you had this online competitive thing going, and then you had these. Well, we got into clans, which was just neat because it was just a group of friends that huddled under one name. But
we had that too. But what sucked for us was that we didn't have any real stable way, mainstream way to play our games online. We had to play on MAME, which is another nightmare because you have people that don't know how to use the software and constantly desyncing. No, I was just messing around with some tonight. I've never used debug mode before because I've never gotten into that stuff, but I used it tonight helping out Conqueror with some new stuff for TE. But we never had any standard, or I should say acceptable way, because we made the standard happen. We were just like, this is how you got to do it, this is what you need, these are the settings that you have to use to make sure that it's going to work for everybody.
Right. Well,
we still had a scene, but it just like it sucked. It really sucked. And the whole like thing with like clans and stuff like that online was like really starting to, like, we had darktemplars.com
right,
like 15 years ago, we'll say. And we had players who played all kinds of games.
Oh, that was a clan?
We were called the Dark Addicts. I don't know who came up with the name Addicts, but it actually wound up, when we put Google ads on the website, it actually would come up with like medical ads for like what's it called? Because the word addicts was in there, but we used the Z. So like our Google, like, because it wasn't that good yet. That was like brand new Google ads.
Right.
I mean, this is a long time ago. So like we were getting like big paying clicks for some of those ads because they were just, it had nothing to do with our stuff. So like if you had like a medical website,
those medicinal clicks.
Exactly. So I was like I'm like looking through, I'm like, holy shit, we got like $1.50 for that one. You get like 3 cents for one. And it's like all of a sudden like, whoa.
Yeah, but, I think another reason, aside from us being on two different sides of the fence, like even me, for example, and how I felt back then is like, all right, well, you know, talking to this person, talking to that person, you don't know what they sound like, you don't know what they look like. It's almost like a little bit of fear in some of it. Like you're comfortable with playing online and doing your thing, and you're really enjoying like those little clan battles and stuff that we had. There'd be times where I'd be up for like 5 a.m. you know, doing this.
Exactly.
And it was fun. But yeah, it was almost like it created like a little bit of a, well, it clearly did. It created a little bit of a war between both sides on like the same game. And you know, it wasn't until well, especially ECT2, because I remember talking to you beforehand, going there, just kind of coordinating everything.
Yeah, I do remember you telling me that you wanted to come out and
yeah, I wanted to come out for the first time and see how it was, because I was never,
because it wasn't Test Your Might yet, right? It was still MK Empires.
You had to mention that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it was. No, yeah, it was that. Yeah, we wanted like I wanted like a powerful name to work behind, but it was just, anyway, thankfully that didn't last too long. But Yeah, but yeah, it was a game changer. It really was for
because you got to actually see. And again, it's funny because you were basing it off of what was, I mean, minuscule. Like it was literally there were probably 5 of us there who were any good at say UMK3. And then there was a few people who just always played because they just liked to play, and that was it. And people used to complain about that. It would irritate me a little bit.
Yeah, but I think there, just in my own experience in going to tournaments, there's that. I mean, it might sound stupid now because going to tournaments is almost a. Well, it's not almost. It basically is a standard because online tournaments, they still exist, obviously, but offline tournaments is basically nowadays the standard. So it's just. But anyway, back then it was just. It was a little bit of fear, I think, in just breaking that ice, so to speak.
You mean as in like engaging people in person? Because when you're sitting like behind a computer or like behind like the screen, basically, you're anonymous in a way. Like you can say whatever you want, doesn't matter. You don't really necessarily have to like.
Not just that, but that, but also the age. I mean, back then, I'm like, hell, 16, 17, so I'm a little a-hole pretty much, and just whatever else is going on, and just that age. But I felt that back then, but it was exciting for me to. And on another note, I meant to say this earlier when you're talking about Tom Brady and how far back he is. It just makes me like respect him, and of course you even more with just how far back you guys go and just the history there. That's just it's awesome to hear that.
It's interesting when you think about like all the people who are still around. So like people.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, people like for example like I always call what I've done like the snowball, because you pick up people as you go and they cling on to the snowball, and the snowball gets bigger, it's rolling down the hill, and then people drop off, and eventually it's just like an avalanche, and that's like pretty much what we had for MK9. But there's people who I never had anything to do with, but they were all doing the same thing that I was doing, and nobody knew, and obviously like in the arcade days, going back before the internet, and when I say before the internet, I really mean like very, very early, like limited people were using it.
Sure,
like 93, 94, where like MK1, MK2 were being played. There were people on the internet meeting up. It was happening. That was 25 years ago. You're talking like an absolutely infinitesimal number of people used it compared to how many people play today. But it did happen. And those same people, you got, again, guys like Summoning and James MK, those guys were old enough to travel and old enough to run events, own, businesses, things like that. They could actually make things happen back then, whereas like all I could do was just like show up to an arcade and hope that there was somebody there to play. Like there were so many sad times where I would go to like Atlantic City. I'd go to, we'll say, Harrah's with my family, and here I am, 14, 15 years old, and I walk into an arcade, and number one, there's just nobody in the arcade. There's like a couple people playing, and you got like a room with like 50 games in it, maybe tops, we'll say. Like 1,000-foot square room, and walking around hoping that they're going to have a fighting game, just a fighting game, number one, to play, even if I'm like gotta like kill time. Like my family's off gambling, I got nothing to do. So you walk in, there's like MK, and you're just playing by yourself in a casino, and it's just like it's such a weird feeling. It's just like this is like what I have to do right now. I like playing games. Hopefully somebody is going to come by and want to play. That's like one of those like how would you put it? Like the FGC is such a concentrated form of what we had back in the day, it's like you're literally going to a place that's a magnet for what you're doing. Like, it's everybody who's going there wants to play competitively, but like when we were young, it was the game might have been there, but there might not be anybody to play. So all you could do is just feed the thing quarters and just, maybe practice your combos for a little bit, but how much can you get out of that? And that's a lot of what we see now is like the knowledge that's gone into making games. It actually has become like part of it. Like the developers used to just make a game to sell, and now they kind of, in some ways, like they want to like make sure that they're making something that even for that tiny little base, those hardcore, like the percentage of people who play games competitively is really, really tiny compared to how many people who buy them. I mean, Mortal Kombat sells millions of games, and there's like 100 people coming out to a tournament. That's not a good ratio, So
well, there's also the some games that really get their, my perception, get their base off of, say, streaming, that kind of thing. So they have just that audience as well. You figure when you think of
actually point, yeah, that audience.
Evo, for example, when you have, say, 100,000 viewers for Mortal Kombat, well, for the developers, of course, that's just pure. I should say pure advertising, but it's advertising for the game to see how crazy this game is, see how the audience is reacting.
It's funny because like I feel that they like, I don't want to say that they don't really care about that, because from a marketing perspective, is you're showing this game to an audience that already knows it exists. So the only advertising they're getting out of it is this game hype enough for me to want to buy it? Whereas like when they advertise like on television or something, it's to like the generalized gaming audience, and that's like where their bread and butter is. You got to figure, I mean, realistically, how many competitive fighting game players do you think there are in the United States? Like, think about that number, right? Compared to how many people actually buy these games. They're doing a big favor to us to even like bother like caring about how like the frame data is, and and the balance and all these patches. Like, it's one thing to fix bugs because like your average gamer is going to notice that and be like, this thing's unplayable, versus like this character's move is too fast, this character's move does too much damage. Things like that is like very, very, very different. So the aspect of stream numbers, I'm not exactly sure how much they care about it.
Well, yeah, as far as, getting more and more into competitive play, it's also the voice that the, competitive field has with it. I mean, I know they've even mentioned that. I forget exactly who, but it was one of the developers just saying that, the general audience might not have such a big voice in voicing those things, but of course the competitive scene does, and of course the competitive scene is growing and continues to grow. So, but not to say that those stream numbers don't count, but that's.
Oh, they count for us. They totally count for us. I'm not saying that at all. I was strictly saying from like the developer and marketing aspect of it is I don't know how much that really like affects their numbers. I mean, obviously they want to sell every possible game they can,
sure,
but
yeah.
They may sell like an extra 10,000 games because of the FGC. That would be insane. I don't know if it's that many though.
Right. Oh man.
But like DBZ is like a good example. Like I remember. I guess it was Atlanta. I think it was. Yeah, it must have been Atlanta when it was pretty new at the time, from what I remember. When DBZ is about a year old now.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, I don't know exactly, but that sounds about right.
Maybe a little more than that. But I remember looking. I guess it was. We must have been done. Yeah, we were done with Injustice because I think they needed Ultra David for commentary, so they must have been done. And I was getting ready to break down, and I just like went. Sometimes I'll just go on, the Twitch app, and I'll look to see, the numbers for other streams that are going on. I think we must have had about $3,500 or something for Injustice, which I mean, it's funny to think because like Injustice 2 was, I mean, what was it, not even a year old yet, and that's like okay, I guess you could say. That's like okay numbers, like on par with MKX, I say, at the same time frame. But then I go to Bifu's stream, and Bifu Techie's got like 44 or 45,000 viewers for DBZ, I think, and it wasn't even like, I don't even think it was like finals yet. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm just like, that's like pretty serious, like serious numbers. And I think maybe for him, maybe he probably didn't think so, but I mean, I don't know what the numbers are right now because I haven't really been going to events. I have this like big break in the middle of the year now. It's like I have like a whole bunch of tournaments in the first quarter and then a whole bunch in the last quarter, and like spring and summer are like empty. So I don't really see like the full year. It's been like this for like the last like 2 or 3 years, but I used to pay attention to that stuff a lot more.
Right.
And I would
same here.
Love, yeah, like I don't. Like, I remember when streaming started really picking up, and it'd be like 5,000 viewers, say. 5,000 viewers would be like a lot for for like maybe Ultra Street Fighter 4 or something like that. For like your, not like like we use the phrases like majors and like locals and everything. We'll say like a major tournament, like back 10 years ago. That was like, wow, because like streaming was really, I mean, you think what, like 2007 probably was when we really started seeing streams. I can't even. Were you like really following stuff yet around that time?
Streams, I would say 07, maybe 08. That sounds right, because I mean, for example, at 08, I was on MKU pretty heavily, but I don't remember as far as, I mean, I'm sure they were happening. I just wasn't,
Yeah.
I didn't know, like, hey, this guy's streaming, MKDC, for example. So.
Yeah, because it just wasn't a thing really. Like, from what I remember, like, you would still be waiting for like videos. Like the videos were getting better, but like there really wasn't like commentary or anything like that. Like that really started picking up. I can't even remember what the platform was before.
It was Justin TV, wasn't it?
They were using Justin TV for it. I figured there would have been something like that, but I just
Justin and I forget what else, but of course Justin and Twitch, and then they ditched Justin.tv. So
yeah, well, that was because there was more. Yeah, there was a lot to that, but but the point was before for that. I just remember going like immediately from, we're just gonna have a video up of the tournament, and it's just gonna be a straight raw video footage. Maybe you might have had like names on the screen, and then all of a sudden it's like people are like, they have like microphones, and I'm like, wow. And then like, people have like headsets, and then we got like 2 streams per tournament. Like it started really just like picking up. And I remember this one tournament was probably like a summer jam, I think it was, and like every room had a stream going on, and I was just like, whoa. I'm like, what is going on? Like we were there and we were streaming, but like it was just blowing up. And of course Street Fighter 4 was such a huge part of like the rebirth of the fighting game scene in general. So many things like piggybacked off that, because you're talking like tournaments started getting like 1,000 people showing up. Like I remember the first tournament I went to had like 150 people, and that to me seemed like crazy because we were in like a small arcade.
Sure, yeah.
Philadelphia, and it's like just jam packed. But like all of a sudden it's like we're at a tournament. Big E's like, I just want to let everybody know we got like 1,800 people here this weekend, and it's like, wow, like 1,800 people just coming out to play video games. Everybody's got their schedules in the sync to come out and do that. That's a lot of money, like to be putting out for hotels and travel and stuff.
Everyone bring your deodorant.
Well, that was the money savers. Like, if we can save if we don't get deodorant, that's
No, yeah, with you speaking of the streaming and that picking up made me think of actually the NEC Oh my gosh, what number did we say that was when it was MKDC, but it was also UMK3, so it was like 30 people and like 11 for MKDC.
That was 12? It was NEC 11. I'll 11. Give you the quick math of how I remember this stuff is because I know that MK9 came out in 2011,
right?
And it was the NEC before it came out, so it was 2010, which then makes NEC 11. This is how I remember things.
No, that's good.
I help you remember like dates and everything, stuff like that. It's almost like mnemonics.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a crazy person, keeps everything together when you got to remember a lot of stuff.
But yeah, with that, I remember recording a lot of those matches. I still have a lot of those matches, and to this day, I feel kind of silly for not doing this yet, but a lot of those matches are still on one of my channels with just numbers, so there's really no good way to search them. But okay, you have the would you record it with like a video camera? Yeah, I had
because I remember, because Czech was there, and Czech was recording, he had brought his PC, and he was recording stuff onto his PC, and, like, I think something happened, he said, like, he lost, like, everything. I don't remember if that was a specific event, but I have, like, maybe 3 videos lingering around. If you can find that stuff, let me know, and I'll do a little, promo on it for Combat Network, and if we can put them all together, I could run, like, I could do, like, a stream for it, like, say, like, I could even commentate while I'm doing it. But
I'm actually on my on YouTube right now, just trying to mess around.
If you think you have like even like an hour of footage, we could do something with that. That would be pretty neat. I would love to see some of those matches too.
I gotta now I'm curious. I have to look around because like. A lot of those you'll probably have to watch it and like, oh, okay, this was this guy and this guy because I was.
Yeah. I do remember watching. I don't know whose footage it was, if it was yours or not, but I do remember watching Rio and Brady. I think in MKDC in the finals. I remember a lot of the Green Lantern antics and the Flash. That's it.
Yeah, I remember almost beating Tom Brady's. Green Lantern with my Raiden. That oh god, that was such a.
We did another little one after that. It was Winter Brawl, the following one, because that was right before MK9 came out. Remember that one?
I found it. I found the videos like this. Okay, so here's one I actually did label Summoning versus Czech. It's funny because I guess once someone found these videos, they just started kind of going through them because some of them are. It's actually 0008 and it has 101 views.
Mm-hmm.
But
are there comments on any of them?
Well, let's see here. Let me. Okay, so I have one that's. All right. Tom Brady versus Storms. There it is. Yeah, that was. Yeah, that has like over 500 views. Let me check this one here. I don't think it says any comment. No, it doesn't have any comments. I'm sure maybe some of them do, but yeah, it's
because like you could have like the one day where somebody just happens to like stumble upon your channel and they're like, oh, he's got like old footage on here, and then it's like, oh, cool, this and that, and then you'll get like somebody who'll just go through and like give you all the information. They'll have gone through like these are these two players. Some people are very useful like that. You'll see it every now and then. They'll tell you like, oh, the matches start here, because it's like, don't be bored and watch the first 10 minutes of the video, people talking.
I also have there's a match from Mo 30W against Perfect Legend at Evo 2012. It was like an off-stream match.
Nice. Yeah.
Anyway, if you go to user SMROTS, so it's Storms backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's SMROTS. MK is in Mortal Kombat, and that's the channel that has.
Yes, Smrots is how I pronounce it whenever I see that.
Yeah, I have a new channel. It's just He Is Storms. So it's.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, let me jump to that real quick.
But yeah, there's let's see here. For example, I have like one used for glue versus I don't know.
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah, sometimes you gotta post it and like ask people if they remember this and who's in this match, and they'll tell you. There's always somebody who remembers, or they can just tell by watching somebody play. Like, oh yeah. All right, so what do we got here?
I should have a Killer Instinct match on here too.
What's that?
There's a Killer Instinct match. I have no idea who's playing, but it might have been Crazy Dominican. Didn't he play that game?
Which one?
I'm sorry, Killer Instinct.
Yeah. That definitely probably him.
Okay.
All right, so you said what was it? What's the username?
It's
SMROTS?
Yeah, let's see here. Let me see if I can send you this through Skype. Wait, maybe I can't.
Just send me a link on Facebook.
Alright, that's probably better. Did you try looking up that channel?
Yeah, I don't... Doesn't look... It's, that's why I was kind of...
Okay. Did you do youtube.com/user/ that name?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, SMROTSMK.
Oh, MK, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There you are.
Okay. Yeah, it's of course towards the bottom or lower half that.
Yeah. There's Dark Rob. Summer Jam 5, nice. Shock vs. Juggernaut, nice. Oh my god, I totally choked on that match. I see the ones. Alright, I see the ones with the numbers. I have seen these. Yeah.
Okay.
At some point. This one. No, see, you got a good amount of stuff here. This is worth putting together as like one video, and then just like running with it.
Yeah, like Tom Brady versus THTB and MKDA casuals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's only 2 minutes. That sucks.
But yeah, all the stuff here. This is good. There's a lot of stuff here.
Good old YouTube.
Right, 48 versus Tom Brady. Cool.
But anyway, no, that was really cool hearing about your early inception to everything, and just kind of funny how our paths finally crossed. Then years later at Health, 2010.
Yep.
So ever since me getting back into the kind of the community, so to speak, 5 years later.
Let's see. Yeah. Well, all right. Yeah. So sorry, I was just going through those videos. Yeah. The real like main factor to me is like everybody who ever did anything that led to the like birth of the FGC, like to me, like matters. So like anybody who is going to an arcade and playing, or like playing on the consoles, anybody who like eventually started showing up to the FGC, like you needed all of that in order to give like the legitimacy. Because now it's like there's so many people, because it's been a long time now. There's a lot of people who like weren't even born when like I was going to tournaments. Think about that. So like arcades were already gone for years, and to like look at friggin' Mike Metroid. Mike Metroid's a baby. He's like 23, I think, something like that. 23 years old. People think he's 53, but he's a young tyke. I was saying, it's funny, at the end of the NEC 17 tournament, because I like to run reruns on Combat Network to keep the cash flow coming in. At the end of that tournament, Tom Brady's doing commentary, and we're talking about how long we knew each other at the time, and it was 15 years at that tournament, and Tom Brady was older than Mike Metroid at NEC 2 than Mike Metroid was at NEC 17. and Brady's like looking at us, and he's just like, I was old at NEC 2.
Jeez. Wow. Yeah, I was just actually listening to Tom on the latest podcast from Rio about Tweety and the Perfect Legend money match. Well, stuff of that, and I still have let's see here. I'm 20 minutes into it, so I have another over an hour to go yet.
Okay.
But no, I guess that's kind of about it for what I wanted to kind of go over for this little episode, so to speak. So we're about, let's see here. Let me pull up my thing.
I mean, I said, I go off on tangents constantly. I actually stopped myself numerous times already in conversation. I was like, no, we just keep it flowing. We'll just keep going.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, over an hour. Alrighty, man. Well, I appreciate the call.
All right. Well,
and we'll talk soon.
Cool. All right, man. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Peace.